This is a continued discussion from the previous episode of Nose to Tail, a podcast where we explore the world of aviation lifecycle solutions, insights, and more. Presented by Jet Midwest.
Did you have any in your earlier career? Did you have any work you guys did on the B2 or?
No, didn't have any work on the B2. I was actually born and raised in Asia, so I'm an American, but I was born in Japan. Lived in Singapore a long time, so a lot of my friends were on the military bases over there. And I did, in my early years when I was a Boy Scout, they took us out onto the USS Nimitz. It didn't have any B-2 bombers on that one, but there were a lot of cool aircraft. And I think those kind of experiences are really what sticks with you, and then later on kind of manifests in you either joining an industry and that's one of the things I appreciate about this kind of podcast is I bet you guys are also reaching out to people who maybe aren't even working in our industry but would watch this and they need to get excited that there's new things happening, that we're using AI, that we're using blockchain. We're not just stuck here in the 1980s with like paper and doing things like the old way. People want to see that there's energy, there's youth and excitement going on in our industry, and I think that's super important because a lot of what our biggest challenges are all around the HR and the lack of being able to transfer that knowledge on to the next generation.
Is there anything else maybe we haven't talked about or some tangent that we maybe that would just be good for a dialogue?
I mean, I think it's a little political, but the China is very topical right now.
Yeah, it is.
The tariffs. I think everybody in the industry, in all industries, is looking at these tariffs today, and what does that mean for the aviation industry? I mean, we're looking at numbers like 50%, 25% goes up every day now, and this is something that I expect, this will settle down. Like, there's going to be rocky times maybe in the coming months ahead, but at the end of the day, I'm going to talk specifically about China because I think that's the most attention-grabbing one. China has a position where they have an advantage in terms of their labor costs and their industrialization and their industrial capacity is very strong. If you think about it, for them, it would almost make more sense to just say, hey, we agree with this kind of reciprocal tariff and drop theirs down because they'll have a competitive advantage. So I think in a way that's a bit of a misstep, but I understand kind of why, maybe it's also a bit of, hey, if you're not going to follow the existing WTO frameworks, then we're going to just do the same thing back to make the point. But what does that mean for the short term? I think it means that Chinese airlines are going to be buying a lot of USM in the coming year or years ahead. Think about it. If you have 50% and you can buy a $100,000 USM part, you buy a $400,000 new part, those tariffs suddenly become $50,000 and $200,000. So the economics will greatly, I think, favor the tariff environment will favor used materials and also favor nearshore repairs, which will also mean that the repair capabilities in China locally will grow. There will be more local China capability to do component repairs. So I think that will be the two things that we see. We see the increased uptake of USM, and we see an increase in China domestic component repair capability, probably supported by the OEMs. Maybe a little bit more of a pivot into Europe as well.
Yeah, the CAACs, so the Chinese Airworthiness Authority, I'll be curious how they respond because the challenges that they put in front of us, we had challenges at the MRO level. We were CAAC approved, and they sort of rescinded all of that and make you kind of go through a new process, and that's very disruptive to how to best service them. We want to do this, but it's expensive and it's hard to find return investment sometimes in some of the challenges that they do put out there because the rest of the world's buying parts.
Yes.
The rest of the parts world is booming right now.
Yes.
And I hope that they can get aligned. And again, maybe the alignment with Block Aero, maybe that helps uncork some of that apprehension that they have about the control over the source of all of those components. So
And I have to say, it's when you look at the way that a lot of these parts are marked and the condition they're in, I mean, it's kind of understandable for wanting to see better traceability. And I've even fortunately been able to talk in some forums with other regulators from, for example, FAA, EASA, Canada, and Brazil, and um, they they all acknowledge that actually this part around the teardowns, around the dismantling, there is a gap because these are not known entities from the aviation system perspective. They don't hold any certificate besides maybe some, the ASA. So it's important to close that gap, and I think that's what we're doing right now. It's definitely a big opportunity for us, and it should unlock that China market as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. I got asked yesterday about we have an office in Turkey, and so I was asked me sort of what was the origin of my thought process there, and I do think that I'm hopeful that the Ukraine-Russia conflict ends soon enough. I think it's some of those things that we don't really control in this world, but have a negative impact on a whole lot of people's lives. And I do think from the aviation sector standpoint, when that ends and the trade opens back up, that there's going to be a nice upward spike for the spare side of the world because
Hmm.
there's obviously not been able to be, there's a lot of airplanes flying that aren't being supported in the way that they're being supported prior to that conflict starting. And so, hopefully we can get back to those avenues and open up those pipes and kind of let the product start flowing back there because it's necessary. And again, conflicts happen, and we're all sitting and waiting and hoping that somebody goes in and with a calm head and negotiates the things to stop. So again, I think there's probably a big boom coming there
Yeah.
once that happens. So
And all the airspace too that isn't like fully accessed at this point.
yeah.
That's another big part of it. I think is if you think about all the extra emissions just as a result of this, it's a lot.
Yeah, I was on a flight back from Dubai to Chicago, and when the conflict started, and not right when it's like the day, but early on in the conflict, and they had, in flight had to reroute us because there was combat operations that they were worried about, and they had to reroute us, whatever, another 40 minutes around to go around the certain area that they were worried about. So it was interesting to be in that scenario and be sitting in the airplane, and they're telling us this over the pilot's telling us, hey, don't worry about it, but because there's some fighting going on, we're going to go around this section over here, and I'm watching my flight map as we're going. I'm like, well, I can see what they're talking about.
That
I
had to
can
be a
see
bit nerve wracking.
yeah, it was interesting.
I mean,
But
actually, yeah, that reminds me of something else. Yeah, so one of the other good things is happening is they're going to start direct flights from the U.S. to Thailand, which is where that's actually where our main base of operations is at Block Aero.
nice.
A lot of people ask why would you set up your company in Thailand? Um, and I think Thailand is a very interesting country. It has a special relationship with the U.S. actually. In fact, they're not the current king, but the former king was even born in the U.S. But they, they everybody knows Thai Airways and likes to think of
Sure.
Thailand as a tourist destination, which it is. But it's also a relatively, I would say, liberal and open country in Asia compared to most of the other countries. So they're trying to do different things to encourage aviation investment in the country. So they have a lot of these like kind of 0% tax benefits that you could take out for like 8 years or more, and they also have a good environment of recruiting talent from the region. So like I can get engineers, software developers, designers, and it's the of course the cost point is lower being in Asia than it would be in the U.S. But everybody speaks English, and it's been a very good environment for us to keep not just the labor or the headcount costs low, but just all the operational costs too are quite affordable there. So very good quality of life. The food is awesome. I can't recommend enough for anybody who is looking to go out to Asia. Thailand's probably the best, one of the best first countries to visit for that regard. And Block Arrows, we've done pretty well over there, and Now we're more actually kind of expanding our footprint in the U.S. So we've been putting a couple of hires out here. We'll probably be setting up an office in Florida in the coming months.
That's good. That's a great expansion.
Yeah.
Now, you told me you grew up in Japan,
I was born in Japan,
or born in Japan.
grew up in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Okay.
So 8 years. My father was working as a kind of executive at a multinational. In fact, they were the OEM of the aviation parts distribution. One of the OEMs of the aviation parts distribution company that my older brother, eventually got involved in. And it also a bit of a family business here in a way too. My younger brother, right there, is the CTO, Adam. So he worked at United Health Group in their technology division, and I was like, look, the engines are kind of like patients, they got to go to the hospital, and nobody knows what the heck happened to it, just like in the real hospital, and it's kind of the same thing. And if you think about it, we need that in the medical world too, but I said, hey, we need systems that are going to be secure. People in the aerospace industry really care about that. Obviously they do as well in the medical field due to all the privacy requirements, but yeah, so I brought him on. He was also with me obviously in Asia when we were growing up. Yeah, I mean that experience definitely shaped my future in a way. It gave a perspective on the world that I think when you live in America or you live in China, they're both really big countries. Like you almost can't. It's hard to get how might other people from a different world see the same problem, or maybe it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think having that has always allowed me to have try to have an open mind on things. And I think that's what's needed for our industry to rethink how we treat our assets and create digital assets for them. So yeah, that's
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm blessed in that I got to grow up in the aviation business in the same city I was born in.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of stay there, by running the operational side. That kind of can't leave if you're running the operational side. But it also has sheltered me. I've had to learn a lot of those lessons, and I've done a lot of travel in my career, and go to places and go, it's funny, I walk into all these places and everybody has unique problems. So we work with all these people on solutions. So now everywhere I go, I've got one more blade on my Swiss Army knife that I've worked. I worked a project there in Canada. Well, I'm going to take that and apply it with the guys that I'm working with in the UK.
Yeah.
And then what would they get? A solution for those guys that's a little bit different. I'm going to put that in place for this customer over here in Mexico. So it's been great to kind of go around the world and do those things. And you've been maybe fortunate enough to grow up in some places where you just kind of learn those things.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
And the languages is key too. That's the key to unlocking the rest of the world, is like how many languages can you do. And I know the Europeans are really good at that. In the U.S., we kind of focus on Spanish a lot. But I also think, if we could get, more language exposure in the U.S., that would also kind of give us a better view of like how we can interact in a win-win kind of way with people. Because, we're all kind of like fighting with China right now and in Europe. And at the end of the day, these aircraft, all of them have parts from China, from the U.S., from Europe, and they're not going to come on. Like, we're not going to make a new 737 or A350 or 787. We got to find a way to work together and play nicely. I think blockchain's also a big part of the international collaboration.
Right. So if it is a standard, it becomes its own language. It's just in the blockchain.
Yeah.
And everybody can share in that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Todd, I appreciate you being here. It's been super insightful. I hope all of our listeners got a lot out of it. I know I did, and I'm excited for the future of Block Aero. And for all of you out there, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Nose to Tail. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Presented by Jet Midwest.